Joseph Parker defeats Carlos Takam on points. The judges have it 8 rounds to 4, 8 rounds to 4, 7 rounds to 5. On my scorecard, I had Joseph Parker winning the fight 7 rounds to 5. So I edged it to him on a points victory. To be honest, I'm pretty happy with my pre-fight prediction and my keys to victory video. A lot of people thought this fight would end early, and it went the distance. Both guys showed incredible heart to actually go the full 12-round distance. And I think the key to this fight, which is something that I did mention in my keys to victory video, was range. When Joseph Parker was having this fight at range, when he was boxing long, when he was boxing from the outside, he was doing enough to win this fight. Quite simply, he was the better man from range. When Takam was able to push up, get close to Parker, sit on his chest, Takam was winning the rounds and seemed to be putting Joseph Parker in some fairly uncomfortable positions. I'm going to keep this video fairly brief as I'm actually about to catch a flight, so I need to leave very quickly. But what I'd say first and foremost, credit to Joseph Parker. Joseph Parker's gone out and at the age of 24, in what was a huge step-up fight for him, he's gone a hard 12 rounds and he's beaten someone who, in my opinion, before this fight, is a genuine top 10 heavyweight. With this fight, Joseph Parker goes into the lower end of the top 10 rankings on my book. So credit to him for that. He showed a lot of heart. He looked very, very tired for me from the 5th round onwards, and he showed a lot of grit and determination to stay into the fight. Outside of heart and determination, he showed some good skills boxing from range. We know he's got fast hands. We know he puts punches together well. We know he picks punches to the body nicely, and all of that was on show. He did very, very well in that sense. It's important for a fighter who's relied on power like Parker has for majorities of his career to have that fight where suddenly power isn't everything. We've seen that before when, when David Haye fought Nikolai Valuev, for example, or when Deontay Wilder fought Bermane Stiverne. That will happen to all heavyweights where you've got to do more than just be a devastating knockout artist, and Parker had that tonight. As for Takam, I must say, whilst he performed with credit, again, showed a good engine, good chin, good heart, etc., I was slightly disappointed by his performance. I'm watching the live footage now as I'm talking, and it looks like he's upset with the result. And let me say, if he's upset with the result, largely he's got himself to blame. In my opinion, he gifted the first couple of rounds to Joseph Parker. The first round could have gone either way, I'd admit that, but rounds 2, 3 and 4 were gifted to Joseph Parker. Takam did very little other than sit at the end of Parker's reins and and throw sort of wide, slow, one-punch hooks. It was later on in the fight where Takam started closing the gap, closing the distance, and trying to get the fight inside the pocket. And I think he'd have been far better served if he'd done that from the earlier rounds. The jabbing with Parker from the outside wasn't working for him, and he should have adapted sooner in the fight for me. Once he did get into the fight, it was very disappointing, certain rounds. I think notably, maybe it was the 10th round. He just takes rounds off, and he was, you're fighting away from home against a hugely popular prospect in their backyard. Did he really think that was going to be enough to win 7 of the 12 rounds? And I think Takam was a bit one-dimensional and kind of didn't do enough to deserve the win here. I thought it was a slightly disappointing performance from Carlos Takam, and I think at times he looked like he could win this fight if he could just give that extra 10%. It was a good performance from Parker. I think stamina for me would be a little bit of a concern. This is the first time he's gone 12. It's the first time he's gone the distance against a decent level of opposition, and I don't think he had it was the most comfortable stamina-wise in the fight. I also thought he needed to use his jab a bit more. There were large periods of the fight where he abandoned the jab. Defensively, he was fairly open. At times he was keeping his hands very low, and he was opening himself up to counters when he was engaging. So for me, Parker really needs to focus on technique in terms of defence, keeping your hands in the right place, getting your timing right when throwing punches to ensure you're not countered, and those sort of factors, really. Those are absolutely key for me in Parker. I think he'd also do well to look at Vladimir Klitschko tapes or Larry Holmes tapes and see how a fighter can use the jab to lead off on everything and sort of dominate a whole fight via the jab. Parker's got a very good jab, and it was effective when he used it, but there were spells in this fight he didn't use it enough. So that's my sort of in brief analysis of the fight, I guess you could say. Credit to Joseph Parker. More things to work on for him, but he's proved himself to be a top 10 level fighter of this win. Takam, again, credit to him. He could have done a bit more. He started a bit slowly. He took rounds off. and I thought he was very effective when he was closing the gap, and he needed to do that more and with more energy. Left feeling slightly underwhelmed by Takam's performance, and left feeling that Parker has put in a very, very good performance, but there's still things to work on from him, and he's not quite world level yet in terms of top 3, top 4, top 5 in the division. My honest thoughts, Parker should be slowed down. He's 24. This was a huge step up in class. I know he's mandatory for Anthony Joshua's world title now. I know it's a hard thing to say, and it's probably an unpopular thing to say. I wouldn't rush into taking that fight. Parker can be a really, really good fighter, but it's fights like these that are going to get him there. If he has fights like these against Bermain Stavern, Bryant Jennings, Tony Thompson, those sort of guys, if he gets more experience of going 12 rounds, if he has 12-round fights where he fights purely behind the jab and keeps his defences so tight, it can really make him in a much better position. For me, there was still a lot of inexperience there for Parker. He started the fight very well. I just edged him the first 4 rounds on my card, but I thought he was winning those rounds very comfortably and perhaps didn't need to engage so much. He could have saved a bit of energy. I also thought the flurry that he put in the 8th round, whilst it was very entertaining, don't get me wrong, was a bit ridiculous given the way the fight had gone, and I thought that was quite amateurish and a sign of big inexperience. He's in a very, very tough fight. His stamina's completely sapped. He's got a very hard 4 rounds in front of him, and he throws some whirlwind 40-punch combination. For me, there's inexperience there that needs to be ironed out, and at 24 in the heavyweight division, he can sit there for 18 months, 24 months. He can have 4 or 5 learning fights before getting to the very, very top and taking a world title fight. I wouldn't rush him into it personally. I think this performance highlights the fact that there's a lot to work on, and he's just stepped up from top 50 level to top 10 level. He's come through it. He's come through it with a few gaps. He's done well on the whole, but moving from Carlos Takam to the top 3 or 4 in the world, I'd want another few fights first. Let me know your thoughts on this, guys. What did you make of the fight? How did you score it? Were you impressed with Joseph Parker? Could Carlos Takam have won with slightly different tactics? Let me know your thoughts. If you've enjoyed this, do hit the thumbs up button. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Many thanks for watching.